Cal Rennick wiped the sweat from his brow as he stepped off the loading dock. It had been another long day at the spaceport of New Meridian, where freight handlers like him worked tirelessly to sort packages arriving from all corners of the galaxy. The air was thick with the hum of machinery and the faint scent of ozone, a constant reminder of the advanced technology that powered this bustling hub of interstellar trade. Cale didn't mind the work. It paid the bills. But it wasn't exactly the life he dreamed of when he was younger. As he walked toward the employee locker room, a courier approached him holding a small, unmarked box. "Cal Rennick?" the man asked, his voice clipped and professional. "Yeah, that's me," Cale replied, frowning. He rarely received personal deliveries, especially at work. Most of his mail consisted of overdue utility notices or junk advertisements for products he couldn't afford. "This came for you," the courier said, handing over the package. "Sign here." Cale scribbled his name on the digital pad and took the box. It was surprisingly light, about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in plain gray material. There was no return address, just his name printed neatly on the top. Curiosity tugged at him, but he decided to wait until he got home before opening it. The ride back to his apartment felt longer than usual. Cale lived in a modest building on the outskirts of the city, its walls lined with faded posters advertising space tourism and exotic alien delicacies. His unit was small but tidy, with a single window overlooking the neon-lit streets below. After tossing his jacket onto the couch, he set the mysterious package on the coffee table and stared at it for a moment. "What could this be?" he muttered aloud, running his fingers over the smooth surface. Finally, unable to resist any longer, he grabbed a utility knife from the kitchen drawer and carefully sliced through the packaging. Inside, nestled in layers of protective foam, was what appeared to be a crystalline pod. Its surface shimmered faintly, catching the dim light of the room and scattering rainbows across the walls. Cale leaned closer, marveling at its beauty. Before he could examine it further, the pod began to glow brighter. A soft hum filled the air, growing steadily louder until it resonated throughout the tiny apartment. Startled, Cale stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a lamp. Then, with a sound like breaking glass, the pod split open along its seams, revealing something, or someone, inside. A figure emerged slowly, unfolding itself with graceful movements. Cale froze, his heart pounding as he realized it wasn't human. The being standing before him was tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like liquid mercury under the light. Her eyes glowed softly, an otherworldly shade of violet, and her hair cascaded down her back in strands that seemed to float weightlessly. She wore a form-fitting garment made of some iridescent material that shifted colors as she moved. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Cale's mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Was this some kind of prank? A malfunctioning hologram? But the warmth radiating from her presence told him otherwise. She was real. "You are mine now," she said suddenly, her voice clear and melodic despite the slight accent. Cale blinked, certain he'd misheard her. What did you say?" She tilted her head slightly, studying him with those luminous eyes. "I am Lyria," she continued. "And you have been chosen." "Chosen? For what?" Cale stammered, still struggling to process everything. Before she could answer, the symbols etched into her forearms began to glow, casting eerie patterns on the walls. Lyria's expression turned serious. "We must leave. They are coming." "Who's coming?" Cale demanded, though part of him already knew the answer wouldn't be comforting. Lyria reached out, her touch surprisingly gentle yet firm. "Trust me," she said simply. Just then, the sound of boots echoed outside his door. Heavy footsteps, accompanied by muffled voices. Someone, or something, was approaching fast. Cale glanced at Lyria, then back at the door. Panic bubbled up inside him, but there was no time to think. Whatever was happening, whatever this strange being claimed about being his, one thing was certain: staying put wasn't an option. "Fine," he said, grabbing his jacket. "Let's go." Together, They slipped out the window and disappeared into the night, leaving behind the only world Cal had ever known, and stepping into a future he couldn't begin to imagine. Cal's heart pounded as he followed Lyria through the narrow alleys of New Meridian, his breath coming in short gasps. The cool night air did little to calm his nerves. Behind them, shouts echoed. The unmistakable sound of pursuit. Whoever had been at his door was now hunting them down, and Cal didn't need to ask why. Something about Lyria made people desperate to find her, and now he was caught in the middle of it all. "Keep moving," Lyria urged softly, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. She moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost unnatural, gliding effortlessly over uneven pavement while Cal stumbled behind her. Her glowing eyes scanned their surroundings, alert for any sign of danger. They turned onto a wider street lined with neon signs advertising everything from interstellar travel agencies to exotic alien cuisine. The city buzzed with activity even at this hour, its streets crowded with pedestrians and hovercars zipping overhead. For a moment, Cal thought they might blend into the crowd and lose whoever was following them. But then he heard it, a sharp whistle cutting through the noise, followed by the unmistakable hum of energy weapons charging. "Down!" Lyria shouted, shoving him into an alcove just as a bolt of blue light sizzled past where they'd been standing. The shot hit a nearby vending machine, sending sparks flying and causing a small explosion. People screamed, scattering in every direction. Cal crouched low, trying to catch his breath. What do they want with you?" he managed to ask between gasps. Lyria didn't answer immediately. Instead, she raised one hand, palm outward, toward the attackers. A faint glow emanated from her fingertips, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, she released a wave of shimmering light that rippled through the air. The pursuing agents froze mid-step, their weapons falling harmlessly to the ground, as if some invisible force had disarmed them. For a brief moment, there was silence. "We need to go," Lyria said firmly, grabbing Cal's arm and pulling him to his feet. "That won't hold them for long." Cal nodded numbly, still trying to process what he'd just witnessed. Whatever Lyria was, she wasn't human, not entirely, and her abilities were far beyond anything he'd ever seen before. As they ran, questions swirled in his mind. Who were these attackers? Why did they want Lyria so badly? And most importantly, why had she said he belonged to her? The two of them ducked into a service tunnel beneath the main thoroughfare, descending into the dimly lit underbelly of the city. Pipes crisscrossed overhead, dripping condensation onto the grimy floor. The smell of oil and rust filled the air, mingling with the distant hum of machinery. Here, away from the bright lights and bustling crowds, the world felt darker, more dangerous. "They're called the Concordants," Lyria explained suddenly, breaking the tense silence. Her voice was low but urgent. "An organization that believes soul bonding, a sacred tradition among my people, is a threat to galactic order." "Soul bonding," Cal repeated, frowning. "You mean, like soulmates or something?" Lyria shook her head. "Not quite. It's deeper than that. My people, the Velari, believe certain individuals across species and galaxies are destined to form bonds that transcend physical existence. These connections strengthen both parties, creating harmony where there would otherwise be discord. You were chosen for me centuries ago, though neither of us knew it until now." Cal stopped in his tracks, staring at her. Wait. Centuries ago. How is that even possible? I'm not special. I'm just me. "You underestimate yourself," Lyria replied gently, "but there's no time to explain further. We must keep moving." Reluctantly, Cal followed her deeper into the tunnels. Despite his confusion and the gnawing fear that this whole situation was spiraling out of control, he couldn't deny the strange sense of connection he felt toward Lyria. It wasn't romantic or familiar, exactly, but rather something deeper, almost primal. like a thread pulling him inexorably closer to her. After several minutes of weaving through the labyrinthine passages, they emerged near a derelict shuttle bay on the outskirts of the city. Abandoned ships lay scattered across the lot, their hulls corroded and windows cracked. It was a forgotten corner of New Meridian, the kind of place where no one would think to look for them. "This will have to do for now," Lyria said, gesturing toward one of the less damaged shuttles. Its paint job was faded, and weeds had begun to grow around its landing struts, but it looked functional enough. Kale hesitated. "Are you saying we're leaving the planet?" "If we stay here, they'll find us," Lyria replied. "And next time, I may not be able to protect you." Her words sent a chill down his spine. Protect him? From what? He wanted to argue, to demand answers, but deep down, he knew she was right. Staying meant capture, or worse. As they climbed aboard the shuttle and powered up its systems, Kale glanced back at the city skyline one last time. The glittering towers and neon lights seemed impossibly distant now, like a dream slipping away. Whatever life he'd known was over. With a soft whir, the shuttle lifted off the ground, ascending into the star-speckled sky. Kale sank into the co-pilot's seat, gripping the armrests tightly. "So," he said finally, turning to Lyria, "where exactly are we going?" She gave him a small, enigmatic smile. "Somewhere safe. For now." And with that, the shuttle accelerated, disappearing into the vast expanse of space. The shuttle soared through the inky blackness of space, its engines humming softly as it left New Meridian far behind. Inside, Kale sat stiffly in the co-pilot's seat, his eyes fixed on the swirling stars outside the viewport. His mind raced with questions, doubts, and a growing sense of unease. Lyria, seated beside him at the controls, seemed calm and focused, her glowing eyes reflecting the faint light from the instrument panel. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was heavy, broken only by the occasional beep of the ship's systems. Finally, Kale couldn't take it anymore. "You said something about soul bonding," he began hesitantly, glancing at her. "That I was chosen for you. What does that even mean?" Lyria turned her head slightly, meeting his gaze. There was a softness in her expression now, a vulnerability that hadn't been there before. "It is difficult to explain without context," she admitted, "but I will try." She paused, as if gathering her thoughts. "Among my people, the Vailari, we believe that certain souls are destined to connect across time and space. These connections are not random. They are guided by forces beyond our understanding. When two beings form a soul bond, they become stronger together, capable of achieving things neither could accomplish alone. It is a sacred bond, one that transcends species, culture, and even mortality." Kale frowned, processing her words. "So, you're saying I'm supposed to be your partner? In what way? Like spiritually? Physically?" "It is more than either of those," Lyria replied. "A soul bond is not just an emotional or physical connection. It is a merging of essence, a blending of energies. Think of it as two melodies coming together to create a harmony greater than the sum of its parts." Kale rubbed his temples, feeling overwhelmed. "Okay, but why me? I'm nobody. I work at a space dock. I don't have any special skills or powers or whatever." Lyria smiled faintly. "You underestimate yourself, Kale. Your strength lies not in grand gestures or extraordinary abilities, but in your resilience, your adaptability. You may not see it yet, but you possess qualities essential to this bond." Her words did little to ease his skepticism. "Even if I believe you, and let's be honest, this is all pretty hard to swallow. Why now? Why, after centuries of being chosen, do we suddenly meet like this?" "The timing is no coincidence," Lyria explained. "Soul bonds awaken when both parties are ready. For me, it happened when I completed my training as a Vailari ambassador. For you," she trailed off, studying him thoughtfully. "Perhaps it was triggered by a moment of change in your life, though I cannot say for certain." Kale leaned back in his seat, staring up at the ceiling. Change. If anything, his life had been painfully static up until tonight. Or had it? Maybe Lyria's arrival itself was the catalyst, a disruption so profound that it forced him to confront everything he'd taken for granted. Before he could dwell on it further, Lyria spoke again. "There is another reason I must tell you this now. Our bond is incomplete. Without finalizing it, we remain vulnerable, not only to the Concordance but also to others who might seek to exploit us." "Incomplete?" Cale echoed, sitting upright. "What does that mean? How do we finish it?" Lyria hesitated, her luminous eyes clouding with uncertainty. "To complete the bond, we require an artifact known as the Nexus Core. It is a relic imbued with the essence of my ancestors, designed to amplify and stabilize Sulvans. Without it, our connection will remain fragile, leaving us open to interference." "And where exactly is this Nexus Core?" Cale asked warily, sensing that the answer wouldn't be simple. "It resides in the outer reaches," Lyria said quietly. "A dangerous region controlled by factions hostile to outsiders. Retrieving it will not be easy." Cale groaned, running a hand through his hair. "Of course it won't be easy. Nothing about this has been easy." Despite his frustration, he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward Lyria, the strange, unshakable feeling that their fates were intertwined. He wanted answers, clarity, proof that this wasn't some cosmic mistake. But deep down, he knew he wouldn't find those things by running away. "All right," he said finally, exhaling sharply. "Let's say I agree to help you get this Nexus Core. Where do we start?" Lyria nodded approvingly. "We need allies. People who can guide us and offer protection. There is a network of individuals who oppose the Concordance, an underground movement dedicated to preserving interspecies bonds. One of them, Dr. Ira Solis, may hold the key to strengthening our connection temporarily until we retrieve the artifact." Cale raised an eyebrow. "Dr. Ira Solis. Sounds important." "She is," Lyria confirmed, "a xenobiologist exiled for her research into forbidden bonds. Her expertise could prove invaluable." The shuttle continued its journey, charting a course toward a distant moon where Dr. Solis was rumored to reside. As they traveled, Cale found himself watching Lyria out of the corner of his eye. Despite her otherworldly appearance, there was something undeniably human about her. Her determination, her vulnerability, her quiet hope. Eventually, Lyria broke the silence. "Do you regret opening the package, Cal?" He considered the question carefully. Regret implied wishing things were different, longing for a simpler life. But as chaotic and terrifying as the past few hours had been, Cale realized he didn't want to go back. Not really. "No," he said finally. "I don't regret it. But I'm still figuring out whether I trust you completely." Lyria met his gaze, her expression solemn. "Trust takes time. And I promise, Cale, I will earn yours." With that, the shuttle entered the shadow of a massive asteroid field, its jagged rocks glittering like fractured diamonds against the endless void. Ahead lay unknown dangers and uncertain alliances, but also the possibility of answers. For better or worse, Cal's life would never be the same again. The asteroid field loomed ahead, a chaotic maze of jagged rocks and swirling debris. Cale gripped the edge of his seat as Lyria expertly maneuvered the shuttle through the narrow gaps, her hand steady on the controls. The ship's sensors beeped intermittently, warning of collisions, but she navigated with an almost preternatural precision. "Where exactly are we going?" Cale asked, his voice tinged with both curiosity and unease. "To meet Dr. Ira Solis," Lyria replied without taking her eyes off the viewport. "She operates from a hidden research station within this field. Few know its location, which is why it has remained safe from the Concordance." Cale nodded, though his mind was still reeling from everything he'd learned so far. Sulbans, artifacts, ancient traditions. It all sounded like something out of a storybook rather than real life. Yet here he was, hurtling through space with an alien who claimed they were destined to be connected. After what felt like hours, the shuttle emerged into a clearing where a small, unassuming structure floated amidst the asteroids. It looked more like a derelict cargo module than a high-tech lab, its surface pockmarked with micrometeorite impacts. As they approached, a faint light blinked on the exterior, signaling them to dock. Once inside, the airlock hissed open, revealing a cramped but functional interior. Cables snaked along the walls, connecting various pieces of equipment that hummed softly in the background. In the center of the room stood a woman in her late 40s, her hair streaked with silver and tied back in a loose bun. She wore a patched-up lab coat over practical clothing, and her sharp green eyes studied them intently. "You must be Kale," she said, extending a hand. Her grip was firm, confident. "And you're Lyria, I presume?" "Yes," Lyria confirmed, inclining her head slightly. "Thank you for seeing us, Doctor." Dr. Irasolis waved off the formality. "No need for thanks. I've been expecting someone like you too eventually. The concordance has made my work difficult lately." She gestured for them to follow her deeper into the station, where holographic displays flickered above cluttered workbenches. Charts detailing interspecies genetics and energy patterns dominated the screens, their data points shifting and rearranging as algorithms processed new information. "So," Dr. Solis began, turning to face them, "you're here about the Nexus core, aren't you?" Lyria nodded. "We need your help to stabilize our bond until we can retrieve it. Without it, we're vulnerable to interference, and worse." Dr. Solis crossed her arms, studying them thoughtfully. "I've heard rumors about the Nexus core. If it exists, it's one of the most powerful relics in existence, but retrieving it won't be easy. The outer reaches are no place for amateurs." "We don't have a choice," Kale interjected, surprising even himself with the conviction in his voice. "If this bond is real, if it's meant to happen, then we'll do whatever it takes." The doctor raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed by his determination. "Well, bravery counts for something, at least. Let me run some tests first. I want to see how strong your connection already is." Over the next few hours, Kale and Lyria underwent a series of examinations. Dr. Solis attached sensors to their temples, monitoring their brain waves and energy signatures. At one point, she had them sit facing each other, holding hands while she observed the subtle fluctuations in their readings. "This is fascinating," she murmured, adjusting the dial on her console. "Your energies are already beginning to synchronize. It's weak, but it's there, a foundation upon which we can build." "What does that mean?" Kale asked, glancing between her and Lyria. "It means the bond is forming naturally, though slowly," Dr. Solis explained. "But natural formation takes time you don't have. That's where I come in." She retrieved a device resembling a metallic bracelet embedded with glowing crystals. "This is a resonance amplifier. It will temporarily enhance your connection, giving you a stronger link until you retrieve the Nexus core." However, she hesitated, her expression growing serious. "It comes with risks. Overuse could destabilize your bond permanently." Kale swallowed hard. "What happens if it destabilizes?" "You lose each other," Lyria said quietly. "Permanently." The weight of her words settled heavily in the room. Despite the danger, Kale knew they couldn't afford to hesitate. "Do it," he said firmly. Dr. Solis nodded, securing the bracelets around their wrists. A warm pulse of energy coursed through Kale's body, making him gasp. He looked up and found Lyria staring at him, her violet eyes wide with wonder. For a moment, it felt as though he could sense her emotions, her hope, her fear, her unwavering resolve. "It's working," Dr. Solis announced, smiling faintly. "But remember, this is only temporary. You'll need the Nexus core to make it permanent." As they prepared to leave, Dr. Solis handed Kale a small data chip. "Take this. It contains coordinates and intel on potential routes to the outer reaches. Be careful. Whoever controls the Nexus core won't give it up easily." Back aboard the shuttle, Kale stared at the data chip in his hand, feeling a mix of dread and determination. This journey was becoming more dangerous with every step, yet he couldn't deny the growing bond between him and Lyria. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. "Ready?" Lyria asked softly, her voice cutting through his thoughts. Cale took a deep breath and nodded. "Let's go find your artifact." With that, the shuttle launched once more, leaving the safety of the asteroid field behind. Ahead lay the treacherous outer reaches, and the answers they desperately needed. The shuttle pierced through the edge of the outer reaches, a lawless expanse of space where order dissolved into chaos. Unlike the bustling trade routes and regulated sectors Cal was accustomed to, this region was a jagged frontier teeming with danger. Rogue ships darted between asteroid belts, their hulls patched together from salvaged parts. Pirate broadcasts crackled over the comms, hailing anyone foolish enough to venture into their territory. Cale gripped the armrests of his seat as Lyria deftly maneuvered the shuttle through a dense field of debris. The faint hum of the resonance amplifiers on their wrists pulsed steadily, reminding him of the fragile bond they shared, and how much depended on retrieving the Nexus core. "This place feels like a bad idea," Cale muttered under his breath, glancing at the swirling mess of rocks outside the viewport. "It is dangerous," Lyria admitted, her voice calm but laced with tension. "But it is also beyond the Concordance's reach. That is why the Nexus core was hidden here, to protect it." "Great," Cale replied dryly. "So not only are we risking our lives for some ancient relic, but we're doing it in pirate-infested space. Just another day in paradise." Lyria shot him a small smile, though her focus remained fixed on navigating the treacherous path ahead. Courage often looks like fear wrapped in determination. "You have both." Before Cale could respond, the ship's sensors blared an alert. A massive vessel loomed ahead, its silhouette jagged and menacing against the backdrop of stars. It wasn't sleek or polished like the ships of New Meridian. Instead, it looked like a monstrous college of scrap metal and weaponry welded together. "That's a raider ship," Lyria said sharply, her fingers flying across the controls. "We need to avoid detection." She geared the shuttle sharply to the left, diving behind a cluster of asteroids. The larger ship's engines roared as it adjusted course, clearly intent on intercepting them. "They've spotted us," Cale exclaimed, gripping the console as the shuttle shuddered under the strain of evasive maneuvers. Lyria didn't answer. Instead, she activated the cloaking device Dr. Solis had installed, a last-minute addition that now seemed like their only hope. The shuttle shimmered briefly before vanishing from sight, blending seamlessly into the void. For several tense minutes, they held their breath as the raider ship passed overhead, its searchlights scanning the area. Finally, it moved on, disappearing into the distance. "That was too close," Cale breathed, slumping back in his seat. Lyria nodded grimly. "It won't be the last time. The outer reaches are home to mercenaries, scavengers, and worse. We must stay vigilant." Hours later, they reached the coordinates Dr. Solis had provided. Nestled within a crater on a barren moon lay the entrance to what appeared to be an ancient temple. Its towering spires jutted out of the rocky landscape, etched with glowing runes that pulsed faintly in the dim light. "This is it," Lyria whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The resting place of the Nexus core." As they disembarked, Cale felt a strange sensation wash over him, a mix of unease and anticipation. The air was thin and cold, forcing them to rely on their suit's environmental systems. They approached the temple cautiously, their footsteps crunching against the brittle surface of the moon. At the entrance, a pair of stone guardians stood sentinel, their eyes glowing ominously. As they drew closer, the figures came to life, stepping forward to block their path. "Who seeks the Nexus core?" One of them intoned, its deep voice reverberating through the stillness. "We are bonded souls," Lyria replied, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "We seek the artifact to fulfill our destiny." The guardians exchanged a glance before nodding slowly. "Prove your worthiness," the second one said. face the trials of unity. Without waiting for further explanation, the ground beneath them shifted, revealing a staircase leading down into the temple. Lyria took a step forward, but Kale hesitated. Trials? What kind of trials? He asked nervously. The Guardians will test us, Lyria explained. Not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. To claim the Nexus Core, we must prove ourselves worthy, not just individually, but as a united force. Kale swallowed hard but followed her inside. The interior of the temple was vast and labyrinthine, its walls adorned with intricate carvings depicting scenes of cooperation and sacrifice. At every turn, challenges awaited them. In one chamber, they faced holographic projections of their deepest fears, memories of failure, loss, and regret. Kale found himself reliving moments from his past when he doubted his own worth, while Lyria confronted visions of her people rejecting her for failing to uphold their traditions. Together, they supported each other, refusing to let the illusions break their resolve. In another trial, they were separated and forced to navigate identical mazes simultaneously. Each decision they made affected the other, requiring perfect synchronization. When Kale hesitated, unsure of which path to take, Lyria's voice echoed in his mind, guiding him forward. Somehow, their bond allowed them to communicate without words, strengthening their connection even further. Finally, they reached the inner sanctum, where the Nexus Core rested atop a pedestal bathed in golden light. The artifact pulsed rhythmically, its energy resonating with theirs. "You have proven yourselves," the Guardians declared, appearing once more. "Take the Nexus Core and fulfill your purpose." As Lyria stepped forward to claim the relic, Kale felt a surge of pride and relief. Against all odds, they had succeeded. But as they turned to leave, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. A bounty hunter hired by the Concordance, armed and ready to strike. "There's no escape this time," the figure sneered, raising their weapon. Kale instinctively grabbed Lyria's hand, feeling the amplifier's pulse stronger than ever. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The bounty hunter stepped into the light, their face obscured by a sleek helmet equipped with targeting sensors. In one hand, they held a plasma rifle aimed directly at Kale and Lyria. The tension in the air was palpable, thick enough to suffocate. "You've caused us a lot of trouble," the hunter said, their voice distorted through the helmet's comm system. "But this ends now." Kale's heart raced as he tightened his grip on Lyria's hand. He glanced at the Nexus Core resting on its pedestal, glowing softly in the dim chamber. They had come so far, risked so much, only to be stopped here, mere steps away from their goal. "Do something," Kale whispered urgently to Lyria, his eyes darting between her and the bounty hunter. Lyria didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a slow step forward, positioning herself slightly ahead of Kale. Her shimmering skin began to emit a faint glow, and the symbols etched into her arms flared brighter than ever before. "You don't understand what you're doing," Lyria said calmly, her voice carrying an authority that silenced any doubts about her resolve. "This artifact is not meant for conquest or control. It is a gift, a bridge between souls." The bounty hunter laughed harshly, their weapon unwavering. "Save your speeches. I'm here for results, not philosophy." Before either side could act further, the temple itself seemed to awaken. The walls trembled, and the runes carved into the stone began to pulse with an intense golden light. A deep rumble echoed through the chamber, shaking loose fragments of rock from the ceiling. "What's happening?" Kale shouted over the noise, struggling to keep his footing. "The Guardians are testing us again," Lyria replied, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "They won't let anyone take the Nexus Core without proving themselves completely." The bounty hunter hesitated, clearly unsettled by the sudden shift in the environment. But instead of retreating, they doubled down, firing a bolt of plasma toward Lyria. She raised one hand instinctively, and the shot dissipated harmlessly against an invisible barrier, a protective shield generated by her energy. Kale stared in awe, realizing just how powerful Lyria truly was. Yet even as she defended them, he noticed something else. The amplifiers on their wrists were glowing brighter, sensing with the pulsating rhythm of the Nexus core. "We need to combine our strength," Lyria instructed, turning to Kale. "Focus on the bond. Trust me." Though fear still clawed at him, Kale nodded and closed his eyes, concentrating on the warmth emanating from the bracelet. Slowly, he began to feel it, not just as a physical sensation, but as an extension of himself. It was as if threads of light were weaving together, connecting him to Lyria in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. Together, they turned back toward the bounty hunter. With a shared thought, they unleashed a wave of energy that rippled outward like a shockwave. The hunter stumbled backward, dropping their weapon as the force knocked them off balance. "This isn't possible," the hunter exclaimed, panic creeping into their voice. "It's not just me," Lyria said simply. "It's us." Seizing the moment, Kale sprinted toward the fallen plasma rifle and scooped it up, aiming it shakily at the bounty hunter. Though he'd never fired such a weapon before, adrenaline gave him courage. "Leave now," he commanded, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. For a moment, the hunter hesitated, clearly weighing their options. Then, with a frustrated growl, they activated a wrist-mounted teleportation device and vanished in a flash of light. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of the Nexus core. Kale lowered the weapon, his legs threatening to buckle beneath him. "We did it," he breathed, turning to Lyria. "We actually did it." But Lyria's expression remained serious. "Not yet. There's one final step." She approached the pedestal and carefully lifted the Nexus core, cradling it gently in her hands. As soon as she touched it, the artifact reacted, its glow intensifying until it filled the entire chamber with radiant light. The runes on Lyria's arms intertwined with the patterns on the core, creating a dazzling display of energy that enveloped both her and Kale. Memories flooded Cal's mind, not just his own, but glimpses of Lyria's past as well. He saw her training among the Velari, learning their traditions and preparing for her role as an ambassador. He witnessed moments of triumph and failure, joy and sorrow. And most importantly, he felt her unwavering belief in the power of connection, the belief that brought them together. At the same time, Lyria experienced fragments of Cal's life, his quiet struggles at work, his longing for something greater, his stubborn determination to survive no matter the odds. She understood now why he had been chosen, not because he was extraordinary, but because he represented humanity's resilience and capacity for growth. When the light finally faded, Kale found himself standing beside Lyria, their bond stronger than ever. The resonance amplifiers had served their purpose. The Nexus core had completed what they started. "We're ready," Lyria said softly, meeting his gaze. "No matter what comes next, we'll face it together." With the artifacts secured and their connection fortified, they made their way back to the shuttle. The journey home would be perilous, but for the first time since opening that mysterious package, Kale felt a sense of hope. Whatever challenges awaited them, they would overcome, not as individuals, but as one unified force. As the shuttle ascended into the star-speckled void, Kale glanced at Lyria, who stood beside him at the controls. For all the danger and uncertainty surrounding them, he couldn't help but smile. This strange, chaotic adventure had changed him, and he wouldn't trade it for anything. The shuttle emerged from the outer reaches, its battered hull bearing the scars of their harrowing journey. Kale sat in silence, staring out at the vast expanse of stars as they approached New Meridian. The Nexus core rested securely in a containment unit behind him, its gentle hum a constant reminder of the bond he now shared with Lyria. Though they had succeeded in retrieving it, neither of them believed their challenges were over. The Concordance wouldn't stop pursuing them, not when the artifact represented something so powerful and transformative. "We're almost there," Lyria said softly, breaking the quiet. Her voice carried a mix of determination and caution, reflecting the weight of what lay ahead. Cale nodded but didn't respond immediately. His mind was still processing everything that had happened. The trials, the revelations, the moments of fear and triumph. He glanced at Lyria, her luminous eyes focused on navigating the ship. She looked calm, composed, yet he could sense the tension beneath her exterior. They had fought hard to reach this point, but returning to familiar territory meant facing old enemies, and proving that their bond was worth fighting for. As they entered orbit around New Meridian, alarms blared suddenly. A fleet of ships materialized on the sensors. Concordance vessels, their sleek designs unmistakable. "They're waiting for us," Cale muttered grimly, gripping the edge of his seat. Lyria's expression hardened. "They knew we'd come back." Before either of them could react further, a transmission crackled through the comm system. On the screen appeared a figure clad in dark robes, their face partially obscured by shadows. "You've defied us long enough," the figure intoned, their voice cold and commanding. "Surrender the Nexus core, or face the consequences." Cale clenched his fists, anger bubbling up inside him. "We're not giving it to you," he snapped. "You don't get to decide who deserves connection or freedom." To his surprise, Lyria placed a hand on his shoulder, silencing him. "Let me speak," she whispered before addressing the Concordance leader. "Your methods are outdated. Fear cannot suppress hope. This bond is proof that unity across species can bring strength, not division." The figure sneered. "Unity? You call this abomination unity? It is unnatural, a violation of galactic order. It's only unnatural to those who refuse to see beyond their own limitations," Lyria countered, her voice unwavering. "If you truly cared about peace, you would embrace the potential of soul bonding rather than destroy it." For a moment, there was silence. Then, unexpectedly, the Concordance leader hesitated. Their gaze lingered on the screen, studying Lyria, and perhaps sensing the truth in her words. "Enough talk," one of the other Concordance officers interjected, clearly impatient. "Take them down." Energy blasts erupted from the fleet, forcing Lyria to take evasive action. The shuttle rocked violently as she maneuvered through the barrage, dodging shots while searching for an escape route. "We can't fight them directly," Cale shouted over the chaos. "There are too many." "I know," Lyria replied tersely, "but we have one advantage. They underestimate us." With that, she activated the Nexus core's energy field, enveloping the shuttle in a shimmering barrier. The Concordance ships paused, their weapons momentarily unable to penetrate the shield. Seizing the opportunity, Lyria guided the shuttle toward the planet's atmosphere, descending rapidly into the safety of New Meridian's crowded airspace. Back on the surface, Cale and Lyria regrouped with Dr. Ira Solis, who had prepared a secure hideout for them within the city's underground network. News of their confrontation with the Concordance spread quickly, sparking outrage among factions opposed to the organization's authoritarian rule. "This changes everything," Dr. Solis said as she examined the Nexus core. "If people see what you've achieved, if they witness the power of soul bonding, it could inspire others to resist the Concordance." "But how do we make them listen?" Cale asked. "They've spent centuries convincing everyone that bonds like ours are dangerous." "By showing them the truth," Lyria answered. "Not through words, but actions. We'll demonstrate that unity isn't something to fear. It's something to celebrate." Over the following days, Cale and Lyria worked alongside Dr. Solis and the underground movement to share their story. Through holographic broadcasts and covert gatherings, they revealed the beauty and strength of their bond, challenging the Concordance's propaganda. Slowly but surely, public opinion began to shift. People started questioning the organization's motives, demanding transparency and reform. Even members of the Concordance itself began to waver. Some lower-ranking agents defected, joining the growing coalition advocating for interspecies cooperation. The once unshakable foundation of the organization began to crack. One evening, as Cale stood on a rooftop overlooking the city, Lyria joined him. Together, they watched the skyline glow with lights, a symbol of resilience and hope. "What happens now?" Kale asked quietly. "Now we rebuild," Lyria replied, her violet eyes reflecting the distant stars. "Not just our lives, but the future, for all species." Kale smiled faintly, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together. And as he gazed at the heavens, he realized something profound. The universe wasn't just a vast, indifferent void. It was a tapestry woven from countless connections, some visible, others hidden, but each one holding the potential to change the world. For the first time in his life, Kale felt truly connected, not just to Lyria, but to something far greater than himself.